When people hear the word Boer, many think immediately of white Afrikaners in South Africa. But in reality, Boer is just the Dutch word for farmer. Nothing more, nothing less. In its pure linguistic form, a Boer could be anyone who tills the land planting seeds, herding cattle, harvesting crops. It's not inherently racial, it's not a political statement. It's just a job description. So, what's going on with the phrase that has sparked so much controversy? Unalive the Boer, unalive the farmer. And why is it that this phrase has been weaponized and distorted into something it wasn't originally intended to be? Let's take a closer look. The language of labor, in Dutch, if you want to say farmer, you say Boer. That's it, whether the person is white, black, mixed race, Zulu, Xhosa, Venda, it doesn't matter. If you farm, you're a Boer. A Zulu farmer is N Zulu Boer. That's the literal, grammatically correct way to refer to a Zulu farmer in the Dutch language. There's no secret code here. No double meaning, just a person, and their profession. This might seem like a small point, but it's important. Because from this simple truth that Boer just means farmer we start to understand how language can be twisted, politicized, and even used as a tool to create division. The song and the story. The song that includes the phrase, unalive the Boer, unalive the farmer, has a long history. It was originally a freedom song during the struggle against apartheid. These were songs of pain, defiance, and liberation, sung in the townships, at protests, in moments of grief, and moments of solidarity. Now, it's important to understand, these songs were not composed in boardrooms or PR firms. They were raw emotional outcries. They weren't written with footnotes and disclaimers. They reflected a brutal reality where white minority rule oppressed black South Africans through systemic violence, land dispossession, and forced removals. In that context, the term Boer again, meaning farmer, came to symbolically represent the apartheid state, because many of the enforcers of the regime's rural land ownership and control were, in fact, white farmers. But here's the key point. The term was symbolic, not racial in itself. It wasn't white farmers, it was the oppressor farmer, the land-controlling farmer. In the same way that calling someone a suit doesn't literally mean they're made of fabric, calling someone a Boer in that political context wasn't just about what they did, it was about what they represented. But here's where things start to get twisted. The supremacist rebranding. In more recent years, some white Afrikaner supremacists have co-opted the term Boer as a badge of identity. They have adopted it not just to describe their farming heritage, but as a kind of cultural title. In doing so, they conflate the general word farmer with their specific racial and political identity. This is a crucial shift. It turns a neutral word into a loaded one, not because the word changed, but because some people want it to. These individuals claim that any criticism, satire, or even historical reflection involving the word Boer is inherently a racial attack on all white Afrikaners. And that simply isn't true. Let's think about it logically. If Boer just means farmer, then a black South African farmer is a Boer too. So how can the word only refer to white people? This assumption that Boer equals white person is not a product of language. It's a product of ideology, a need to be the subject. There's a pattern at work here. Certain groups, particularly those with supremacist leanings, tend to place themselves at the center of every narrative. Whether the issue is crime, politics, land reform, or music, they position themselves as the victim even when they're not being referred to at all. They want to be the subject, even in someone else's pain, someone else's protest, someone else's struggle they insert themselves. So when a song refers to Boers, they immediately claim it as an attack on them, even if the context makes it clear that it's not about race, but about oppression. Even if the farmer in question could be black. Even if the song was written decades ago as a cry against apartheid. They don't just want to be acknowledged, they want to be exceptional, special, persecuted, even when the facts don't support it. Can a whole race be farmers? Let's take a step back. Can a whole nation, or a whole race, actually be farmers? Of course not. Farming is a profession, not a birthright. Not every Afrikaner is a farmer. Not every white South African owns land. And not every black South African is landless. But in the mythology of white Afrikaner identity, farming has become central. It's become symbolic of a rugged, self-reliant past, of hard work, of tradition, and in the narratives pushed by supremacist elements, it's been recast as something almost sacred. This helps explain why many white Afrikaners have adopted the term Boer as a quasi-ethnic title even when they have nothing to do with agriculture. The romantic idea of being a farmer is appealing. It places them close to the land, close to history, and most importantly close to victimhood when that identity is challenged. Refugee status and false narratives. This brings us to another strange twist in the story: the so-called Afrikaner refugees in the United States. Over the last couple of decades, certain far-right media circles in America have amplified a narrative that white South African farmers, again labeled Boers, are being hunted or genocided. These claims have been widely debunked. South Africa is a country with a high crime rate that affects all races, and rural crime is a serious problem, but it's not racially targeted in the way these narratives claim. Yet despite the lack of evidence, some Afrikaners have used this narrative to apply for refugee or asylum status in the United States. And in some cases, they've succeeded. To the average American unfamiliar with South African history or the nuances of Dutch and Afrikaans, the term Boer might seem like a unique ethnic group. Something exotic, something endangered, something noble. They imagine these people as persecuted farmers, fleeing from racial violence, clutching Bibles and seeds in their hands. But the truth is more complex. Many of these so-called refugees aren't farmers at all. They're not landowners. They're not victims of anything except, perhaps, economic hardship, just like millions of South Africans of all races. The narrative was shaped to provoke sympathy, to erase the nuances, to turn political discomfort into a humanitarian crisis. And it worked. Conclusion. What's in a word? So what does all this teach us? It teaches us that language is powerful but also vulnerable to manipulation. A word like Boer, simple and honest in its origins, can be twisted into a symbol of division if enough people insist on giving it a new meaning. It teaches us that identity is often not just about who we are, but about the stories we choose to tell ourselves. And it teaches us to be skeptical when one group consistently tries to make everything about them, especially when the original context was never even about race. The song didn't say, "Unalive the white man." It said Boer farmer, but some people heard that and said, "They're talking about me." Why? Because they want to be the subject. They need to be. But sometimes, the story just isn't about you. And that's okay.